Scott Leaper. Right, I've got this recording. Sherry, you'll hear Scott Leaper told me about it. Oh, cool. Welcome. Cool to have you. So, Wisconsin. Wow. What time is it
Yes,
there, Sherry? That's
it is noon,
lunchtime. Cool.
lunchtime.
Civilized
Yes.
time. Yeah.
Welcome, welcome. Oh, that's
Thank you.
amazing.
Happy to be here.
That's really
And we
nice.
got
I
and
feel
we
like
got
this is
Gav
really
Thompson on
good.
as well.
Have we
I've seen
got?
Gav for years.
Yeah, Gav and I had a moment last week, didn't we, Gav?
Uh, yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. So I've got yeah. Hi guys. Hi Mark. Sorry, I'll be with you in a minute.
Don't worry,
I
Mark.
can hear and see you. You just can't really see. I didn't know you could hear me properly. But anyway, hi.
It's all cool. It's all cool, cool. Leslie Ullman. Oh, so good to have you here. Love Leslie. Leslie and I did loads of events during COVID. It was so much fun. Love Leslie. Graham, we had a chat today. Oh, thank you for joining. Dan. Dan and I had dinner a week ago, which was a week ago, 2 weeks ago, which was amazing. Yeah. Carla, welcome, Cumbria, buddy. Anna is working on a book, a very exciting book coming out in January, which I'm going to be going on about. Welcome, everybody. Anyway, oh, it's so nice to have you. I'm so chuffed. It's always a bit nerve-wracking, this stuff. Like you put something out, and you're not sure is it going to just be me and Mark, which would be cool. I mean, we could just sit and chat,
We'd
could
have a great time. Yeah, be all right.
but you're never quite sure how it's going to go. So I really appreciate everyone showing up. That's amazing. So thank you. So Mark, I asked Mark Shayler to come and do this because Mark and I, just before COVID, I think it was 2020, we ran this conference for a big media company that I was working for at the time, and I loved it. And he was brilliant. He was like this compere, and he came and like managed a unruly crowd, kind of. You know, you got them going. And we started talking about, oh, we could do stuff together and blah blah blah. And then COVID came along, and it kind of like just threw that all out the window. We've caught up every now and again, but I just thought, you're the person I want to kind of share this moment with. So that's why I sort of invited you here to sort of chat along with the books. I'm going to hand over to you actually in a minute.
Oh, bless you.
But
Bless you,
I
Eleanor.
just thought I should explain, why did I approach you with my hesitant email of like, Mark, I don't suppose you fancy.
And how long was the hesitant response?
About, yeah.
Immediate. Yeah, of
Yeah.
course I'm in. I'm in. So I know a few of you. I don't know all of you. My name's Mark Shayler. I am in order of importance a granddad, a dad, a middle class, middle-aged carver of spoons, chigonga. I've got all of those habits. Listen to the Stone Roses. I ride my bike squeezed into impossibly tight lycra. And I do
Wow.
all kinds of breath work because that's the way the world is, right? You gotta be in it or
And
you've
the
got to be
do
against it.
lecturer author got the books.
Yep. So I've written three books, two do lecture books, and one called "You Can't Make Money from a Dead Planet," which was my most recent book. I'm an environmental consultant. I do a lot of work in brand and provocation and purpose as well. That's it. But all those things, being a granddad, to my 6-year-old and my 2-year-old grandkids are that's the best job in the world. It comes with no pay, but absolutely no HR issues either.
Oh, I'm not sure
Perfect.
about that. There's probably a few grievances.
No, genuinely, if there are, the babysitting gets withdrawn. So I have all the power.
Love that. Brilliant. Oh, cool. So, yeah, Mark, so I challenged you to kind of go, right, you kindly read the book and went through it, but yeah, open to sort of chat about it. Obviously, I'm kind of
Yeah,
curious about your views and then obviously maybe ask about my views. That's totally cool. And if anyone's got things they want to share, just use the chat. Let's kind of make it a little bit interactive as well. I'm all up for that. But yeah, Mark,
I
really
think so.
curious. I sent you the book, said kind of have again terrifying kind of stuff, sending people books and asking what they think. But yeah, over to you.
Okay, well, first off, well done. It's a really good book that's really needed, and people in moments of change kind of cling on to the closest thing or the thing that they got successfully right last time. And that's called Einstellung, letting the successes of
Yeah.
yesterday get in the way of tomorrow, and it's a really dangerous trap. And the book's brilliant. I really enjoyed reading it, and it won't be I won't just read it once. That's how much I like the book. It'll be used again and again. So the book's superb. Thank you. And I want to start really right at the beginning, or not right at the beginning of the book, but right at the beginning of process of change. And when change comes, I always gravitate back to the same quote, which is the Heidi Pride quote, which is to love someone long term is to witness 1,000 funerals of the person they used to be. And I like that quote, but prefer my version of it. To love yourself long term is to witness 1,000 funerals of the person you used to be. And when change is thrust upon us, sometimes when we ask for it, there's a real temptation to let go, to try and get back in the door that is closing. And you talk really beautifully in that whole letting go chapter. You talk about saying goodbye and even writing a letter to the closing door. I thought that was beautiful and practical, and I love the way that the whole book is about philosophically reframing and then moving into practical action. Because you can do one, but you've got to do the other, and you can do the other, but actually without the philosophical reframing, you're going to keep going back to the same habits that kind of keep you stuck. So, how do how how can you help people let go of that old version of themselves that may be attached to the pre-change? How does that
Yeah.
work?
Cool. Oh, I love you throw quotes in because that's definitely one of the things throughout the book, as you know, like little quotes here and there that inspire thought. Um, so the letting go piece, um, what I saw, and it could actually be in any one of the chapters. There's obviously the 5 steps, which talk you slowly through your transformation, but letting go could appear in any one of them. So when I was mapping out, I was sort of talking to people over maybe 2 or 3 years about what they're doing, how they go through change, watching how people navigate change at work. The bit that I saw was exactly what you just said, like clinging on to something or not even realizing they're doing that. So the letting go thing I kind of put in the beginning because as a thought, but maybe you're not always ready for that. And actually, some people already have kind of said, actually, I had to pause reading and I'm going to come back to it. I'm not ready to let go. I realize I'm just not in that space. So it's really interesting the letting go concept. Like we actually find it really difficult in moments of change, and it kind of depends on what we're actually letting go of. And ourselves, as you said, is probably like the biggest thing, and the old you, and how are we going to shift into new us. But yeah, the little tool, the really nice little tool just to start that off, the dear kind of door, it's closing, was actually an exercise that myself and Claire Winter ran when we were thinking about doing it again online. And she does sort of poetry to kind of heal, like, talk through writing. And it was a little exercise we ran online with about 20 people joined. And she talked through this kind of closure, and you write a letter to the door closing, and then you just let go of it. And, it's sort of like a little healing sort of session. So that's like the little tool in it. But I do think it's a little bit harder. And we have little moments maybe where we let go of old us. And then suddenly something comes back and we revert to default because that's our survival technique. And then, we step in again into new us. So I don't know if it's as clean cut as just one step, but it's definitely something we should bring to our attention. Like, is this old me operating or is this new me operating?
And I think to ask those questions is really important. You tend to look at situations from one of those two standpoints in change. I've had change thrust upon me, and it's really quite uncomfortable sometimes. But I love the ceremony or the kind of transition that writing a letter creates. It draws out like a pensieve all of the thoughts and puts them somewhere. And I think that's really wonderful, and it's an essential sort of start to the process. And the other thing that I really like, because I'm quite messy myself, and I quite like those, and they're hard to see when you're in them, but those liminal spaces between things, where we sit between two things, which is the original version of the word dilemma. We sit between not necessarily choices, but moments, and they're moments where you can And they become milestones of our lives. They become the bits that stand sort of taller than others. And you talk about the gift of the in between. And when you frame it as fertile ground, the place where ideas surface, where they bubble, where they ferment like sourdough. I do that one as well. Where we actually get to reflect what came before and what's coming next. They're really rare. And I'll always remember. I got married really early. I was still at university when I got married, and I always remember having a conversation with my dad, like the night before, and say the last time I remember thinking about things like this, I was about 12 when my granddad died, and then I was 22 and getting married, and those moments come few and far between. So that really resonated with me because most of us want to rush out of uncertainty, and it's always better to run to. Love is in the running towards, as the fire station at Old Street says, not the running away from. And I think growth happens at those nodal points if we can be brave enough to sit still in them. The discomfort is always in the sitting still. So you describe this in between as fertile ground rather than wasted time. How have you been able to slow down and use that space rather than rushing through it? And what advice would you have for others who are going through that? Anna, your hair is absolutely astonishing. It's like something from 1984, but more relevant. Honestly, I
Wow,
love it.
Anna, that's incredible. Anna's going to be like, is that good? Is that bad? What's going
It's
on?
good.
She's
No, it's
always
like
immaculate, Anna. She's
it's
always
like a
immaculate.
really good flock of seagulls. Keep it going. It's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant.
My God, that's so random. Uh,
Can't help it. I've got ADHD.
yes.
So the gift
I
of the in
think I
between.
think most people on the call probably can understand that. Yeah, so well, first of all, you started like with the messy bit, which obviously step two goes into we're allowed to be messy, we're allowed to go off track, we're allowed to talk about people's wonderful hair. That's all good because that is being messy and change is messy, and that's the first thing to sort of acknowledge. And I think that's why sometimes pause and stopping, and as you say, like the gift in the silence is really hard. And I don't actually think I'm the expert in it. When you write a book, as you'll know, and the authors that are on the call know, when you write a book, it's no longer about you, it's about the reader. And you
Yeah.
have to be really clear on that. So it was no longer like, oh, I've got this all sorted, I'm brilliant, I'm just going to share with you. It was me observing people and learning it and trying to learn on their behalf and then put it into writing. So I'm actually pretty bad at pausing, like really bad. I'm a doer, which in the book we kind of explore we can be different kinds of pausing. I'm a doer. I get busy, give me a little gap of silence, I'll fill it with something random. So I've had to really work on that. So the first thing I'd probably say to people is it's okay to have a weird, messy relationship with the pause, but you have to acknowledge it is really important. You can't pretend it's not. I think actually Graham's on the call. Graham Alcott was on my podcast maybe years ago now. I can't remember. We've been on a few times. And I remember him saying like rest is part of productivity. You know, you've got to build in recovery, you've got to build in pause to actually be great. And it really stuck in my head. And I thought, God, I'm really not good at that. So actually, I wouldn't say I'm the expert at it, but I would say I observe people filling their gaps with stuff, getting busy, and it's just not what we should be doing, especially in moments of change. Really simple example, when you get made redundant, what's the first thing you do? You get busy, you get on LinkedIn, you start pressing the apply button for any old random job that you don't want. You send out your crap CV that you haven't even like looked at. You just operate from a space of busyness, a little bit of panic going, like whatever it is, get busy because we feel like we're doing something. But if we stop and go, hang on a minute, what do I actually want? What's going on? It's all right to just slow down. I'll get to where I need to be quicker. Then actually different answers come. So yeah, I think the first thing I'd say is work on your relationship with pause, even if you don't feel you're going through big change. It just shows up in your life in so many different ways.
And it's really interesting listening to you talk there. That could be the way I talk about pauses in a presentation. I teach presentation skills. in my spare time. And that could be me talking about that. Those little moments
Yeah,
of
true.
reflection, not filling every gap with an action or a word because we feel the need to be seen to be in control. But having that moment of, okay, I have no idea. I guess the risk is how to stop a pause becoming a hiatus. That's a challenge. And the other thing that I was thinking about is rest. I'm shit at resting as well. If I'm not moving, who am I? That's a self-worth thing that
Yeah.
I have, a self-definition. But I really like that idea of rest equals resilience. And I think there's something really powerful there. Like
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
you just talked about the 5 steps.
yeah. Yeah,
So I'll just summarize this 5 step framework
Before
because I
we
thought it
get
was
into
really
that,
powerful.
Mark, Mark, can I just pick up that bit? Because I'm trying to see if I can reach the book, but I probably can't. But you know that bit about rest? If people like reading books, like random books, one of the best books I read about it was Trisha Hasey about resistance. Rest is resistance. And she has this concept called like the ministry of napping or something, the nap ministry. And she's all about like, actually, we've been programmed to believe that rest is a bad thing because, she talks about kind of from a cultural point of view, from Black community point of view. That's what she kind of describes, like how she talks about it, that we've been told that it's bad. And so it's actually quite ingrained in society. And so her whole book, which I totally recommend reading because it will really like challenge your whole mind on that, is just, yeah, exactly, Alison. I remember you commenting on it, Alison. Yeah, napping is a radical act. It was just like one of those things that you stop and think, oh my God, like I'm a rebel because I'm gonna rest. So, sorry, I just had to say that because you just hinted there at the resistance part.
Well, there's resistance to rest. It's really
Yeah,
interesting what you
yeah,
say. I remember a really good friend of mine. This would have been, oh, I don't know, how old am I now? I'm 57. So this would have been 37, 38 years ago. A friend of mine, Anna, she used to work at Greenpeace, and she was pregnant. And when she got pregnant, she felt that it was okay for her to climb under her desk and have a little nap in the afternoon. And the sadness is that she had to wait until she was pregnant to make that felt okay. That to me is an act of self-care. And I think the world would be great if we had a little doze under our desks in the afternoon or wherever. I think it's brilliant. It's a really good point. And thank you for calling me up on
yeah.
on that.
Love that. Yeah, yeah. Look, we've got
So
loads of radical rest fans. Love that.
radical nappers. I love
Yeah,
it. Like,
radical nappers.
it's super, absolutely superb. And so going through the 5 step process, I really liked it because you don't pretend that we can control everything. It's really clear that we can't control everything. But what you do suggest is that having a structure to build a bit of order into that chaos, which is not always bad. Um, I loved it because it's practical without being rigid, and it shows how having a process can maybe reduce that sense of overwhelm. And I was thinking about how I use the same process ideas to build a talk or to help
Yeah,
companies with innovation. The process isn't the answer, but what the process does is give me milestones and it gives me a vision to the next. When I'm out on my bike and I'm thinking, shit, I've got however many meters to climb on this hill, I think, oh, that's okay. That's only 7 of my height. So all I've got to do is 7 of my height, and that's still quite a decent climb. But it's a really interesting way of breaking things down. So I'll just talk through those steps for
yeah,
those that don't know them. So step 1, pause, step back, create space, think, rest, do nothing for a moment, and be comfortable in your own silence. Frankly, in your own company. Number 2, mess. Lean into the messiness. Almost embrace that uncertainty. Give it a name. And if there's discomfort there, oh, hello, anxiety, my old friend. I know why you're here. So I often talk to my feelings like real people, and sit in that discomfort and then explore what's happening internally. So that's step 2. And step 3, play. Experiment, try new ideas, free yourself from the constraints of seriousness without needing them to be perfect. Treat change as a space for discovery was the overriding kind of tattoo that I was left with, the retina burn of that section. And then there's this try, this experimentation, this iteration. Pick actions, try them, prototype, new direction, try again, learn from what works, learn from what doesn't. Talk to others, keep your radar on. And then finally step five. And if I don't do this justice, please jump in. Step five is this reset, this idea of integrating what you've learned and then go back in. And I used to use another, there's a three-step process, and I can't remember. It's kind of like, is it unfreeze, change, freeze? And I like that resetting in your stage five. Yours is much better, your process, by the way. So I thought those stages were really interesting. Kurt Lewin, that's it. Thank you, Scott. Um, so is there anything you'd like to add in terms of how people navigate what speed maybe they must go through or they could go through those five stages, and what to do when they feel like they're not moving through them, when they feel like they're walking through quicksand, which I genuinely thought would be the end of me when I was watching Tarzan movies in the 70s. And I've never, ever seen any quicksand ever, ever.
Oh, well, you're not looking in the right places. That's why.
Well, maybe I am. Life is fine. So how fast and
Yeah.
what relevant momentum do we
Yeah.
need?
Yeah. Oh, it's weird when you hear like your work being played back. It's a really weird experience. But yeah, cool. So, well, the first thing I think is I know that some people love frameworks and some people have allergic reaction to frameworks. And I've seen loads of stuff like where people are like, if I hear one more 5 steps this, 5 steps that, which is hysterical because like both my books are now 5 steps and all my work is 5 steps. In fact, I probably talk in 5 steps as well. So if you ever get on a call with me, I'll be like, okay, 5 things. But it's not about like 5 steps and we're done and it's easy and this is like the life hack. For me, it was more about a thinking space, like what you've described it. It's a thinking framework that then starts to reduce this kind of overwhelm that comes in change, where you just think, I don't even know where to start. I've got full of ideas. I'm full of this, I'm full of that. So just having a framework that you can work through and a thinking space that kind of provokes thoughts starts to reduce that overwhelm. So the book is written as a thinking space rather than a training approach. So I don't really want to tell anyone how to navigate change. That was never really the aim. What I wanted to do was create sort of thought pokes, as I would call them. So they're kind of poking and going, how about this? How about that? And some people will resonate with some parts and some people not, and that's a good thing as well. So I did a podcast last week, and the guy said I kind of stopped at play because I kind of wasn't resonating with it at this point, and it was really interesting. I was like, oh, that's brilliant. Let's talk about that because that's the point. It's making you really think in different ways. So the frameworks in any kind of form should always be thinking spaces, not like, oh, tick that box. Oh, I'm at that space now. And now the next one and the next one. Because it doesn't work like that. It just helps you to sort of think and go back. So, you might play with something for a while and think, oh, get curious. And then you might have to stop again. But because you've worked on how you pause and what you need and you're getting to know yourself better in silence, you can do that. So that's kind of how it was written. It was kind of written as thinking, kind of inspired by Nancy Klein's work to a degree, creating these kind of thinking environments. But yeah, it's quite hard to write that because people do feel like it's a kind of step by step, and then when I get to the end, I'm done and brilliant. But not neither of my books are that. They're just thinking spaces. I
It's
don't
about
even know if I
tick.
answered the question there, but anyway.
Yeah, you did. No, no, you did. And there's some. I think there's some fascinating little insights there about how different people use it. And I'm
Yeah.
wondering whether you've noticed if there's any particular step. I mean, you mentioned play a minute ago
Yeah.
being the end. Any particular step that people struggle with most, and why? And I kind of get it with play. We've had play drilled out of us, and that's super sad, right? School's finished, serious. Actually,
Yeah.
investigation, all innovation is just nothing other than structured play with a purpose. Which steps do you think people will struggle with the most, and why?
Yeah, definitely play. I'd like to know if people on this call as well, because I think actually all five have reactions. People have reactions to them when I talk to people about it. So people definitely hesitate with pause, and I get a lot of, again, on podcasting media, I get a lot of people saying people don't have time for pause. It's quite a luxury item, it's quite a privilege to pause. But again, if you read it, it's actually like make pause your own, own it. It can be just sitting for 1 minute. I mean, go and sit in the toilet for a minute in the morning and just close the door and don't take the phone with you. Like, like just do that. Just create a pause somehow, just to give yourself thinking time. So there's definitely pause. Messiness, people don't really like the word mess in corporate for sure, but they do actually kind of embrace mess. They're kind of like, yeah, I'm in my messy space. I totally get that. Play, you're right. Really weird relationship with play. A lot of people will say to me, I don't play. I'm just not a person who plays. It's not my character. It's not one of my values. But my work kind of, that whole sentiment got inspired by Gary Ware, who wrote the book Playful Rebellion, and he did a TED talk. Really go again, go and watch it. It's brilliant. And he says, you know, sitting in an agency office, busy, busy, I'm so busy. Got invited to go to like a comedy improv thing, and he was like, "Oh, seriously? Do I actually have time for this? No, it's nonsense." But something made him do it and go along. And he just had this sort of moment of like, oh my God, because when he got back to the desk, he'd revitalized and re-energized, and he just changed his whole thing and started getting curious about, oh my goodness, what is this relationship I've got with play? So yeah, I spend a lot of time in play, as you know, reading it, and I go all random all over the place about curiosity. And again, if you've read the book, you'll know I go from curiosity killed the cat, you know, what on earth is that about? And then I even look up what Ben from Curiosity Killed the Cat band is doing now. And then I go into like, where did the actual cliche come from? I go all over the place to sort of demonstrate that. Jessica was probably like thinking, oh my God, because when she read it, she was like, oh my God, your brain, stop. But you know, that was the point. I wanted play, the section of play, to feel really playful and poke and get you to kind of just look at things from a different point of view, because suddenly it re-energizes you, and you might just get that little idea that sparks something completely random or reminds you of something that sets off a whole new sort of thought. So yeah, play is definitely the one that people have the weird relationship with. Try is kind of fine. I think people get that, and taking small steps is, they quite like that. And again, restart. A few people resist, but the whole point is by the time you've played and you've re-energized yourself and you've taken a few small steps in start, you're kind of like, why wouldn't you just press that intention and go for it? So that it's kind of built that way that you get little resistance by the time you get to step 5.
And the more you stretch those muscles, the less they hurt, right? The less they complain. And I'm Curiosity Killed the Cat, by the way. They've written one of the best one-hit wonders ever. It's a great song, right? And he wore astonishing loafers in
And
that
his
video.
hat.
If
We all
yeah, yeah.
remember
Oh,
Ben's hat. Yeah.
well, we do. Yeah, and he massively long legs from memory. But I love this idea of play and building it in. So I build it into the workshops that I do in two
Yeah.
ways: physically, so movement, a little bit of qigong, a little bit of tai chi, a little bit of kind of like hand wrestling, but then also intellectually. So all my idea sessions are always give me 5 great ideas and 3 shit ones, because the shit ideas, like, we hide those playful,
Yeah.
brave, audacious ideas because we think that someone's going to look down upon us. No, I want them. And then there's always gold in there. There's no two ways about that. There's always gold in there. And that is playfulness and experimentation. And it works beautifully.
Yeah.
And you're
I've got to pick
you're
you up as well on this, that shit ideas and 3 shit ideas and 3 great ideas. Because remember when we were running that big conference for all the media
Is
people,
that the
senior
one when I
managers?
offended the Daily Express so badly, and then he invited me out for dinner so I could explain myself? That one.
Yes, that one, Mark. Yes,
Yeah,
that one.
yeah, yeah.
Where
We
I
got on
was asked
famously
to
by the
leave pretty soon
we got
afterwards.
on
But
famous. Oh, is that my fault? Shit.
no, 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 I'm joking. I'm joking. I'm joking. No, it was great. It was that, yeah, it was very funny. I should have actually briefed you on who was in the room, but it's all good. But you ran that session. You ran the shit ideas and the
Did
the
I?
great
I've
ideas
forgotten.
And we printed off these sheets of paper, which again, there's a few people who facilitate this stuff online and they probably do similar stuff. But we put it all around this conference and we got people to scribble on it and write on it. And at the end, because I was very conscious of like not leaving any mess because this room was sort of, I took all of the papers home with me, like all of the printouts, and I had all of this stack of papers that had three great ideas, three shit ideas. And what I didn't know was my daughter kept on, who was about 6 at the time, kept on getting these bits of paper and using it to like colour in and draw pictures. And I have this amazing picture, which I've got framed, which says, and it has shit ideas and great ideas on it. And she's drawn this great house on this side and like a sad person on the other side. And I was like, oh my God, this is so wrong in every way. And she was like, oh, I was just thinking like what, shit. I was like, oh my God. So yeah, it was a little bit uncomfortable that she was understanding the word shit. But anyway,
Uh, I'm
one of those.
sorry. Honestly, my swearing is horrific. I know that. I know that. Um, and I'm interested in. There's this third bit that really resonated with me around giving people permission to feel everything, to not push away the discomfort or this feeling of fear or whatever it might be, and giving your mind and body the kindness of your attention,
Yeah.
giving it the hey Gab's on, giving it the investigation of your attention. That is like utterly magical.
Mm.
What practices or tools do you think people can use to sit with those feelings that maybe actually are quite amorphous, quite hard to define?
Oh yeah, really hard. And again, I would never say I was the expert. I was more the curious mind. Again, watching things come up and think, well, how can I provide something that gets people to think about this? But I did know that it comes to people in different ways. That kind of sense. Some people just cannot deal with it at all. So I think some of the work that I kind of connected with and I liked from that perspective was Prentice Hephill work, which an amazing book. They write really from the heart about healing, but some of that kind of work on again how you sort of you attach yourself or become aware of your body in moments of change was really fascinating. But that just scratched the surface for me. I put it in there as a thought-provoking thing.
Mm.
And I've actually kind of like explored it later because from my curious mind. But it's one of the things that people find really resistant because it kind of starts going into the world of woo-woo a bit for people.
Yeah.
And people feel a bit like, whoa, like the body keeps score and all that kind of thing. People feel really uncomfortable about it. So actually, I didn't put too much in. I put enough that if you get curious, you go and find out. But let's not get distracted and you start going, oh, where's this going? Because I didn't want the book to do that. I wanted to, keep going, keep not being put off, keep exploring. So yeah, it's really that is one of the things that people find a little bit uncomfortable.
Of course, and there's like sticky patches there. I've been to two gigs recently, and these bands I would never, or artists I'd never would have.
Coldplay.
No, never. I would. First album's good, to be fair. I would never say that I would have gone to see them, right? So the first one was Oasis, who I didn't get tickets for, and didn't give a shit until I didn't get tickets for. Then it's all I wanted to do was to
Interesting.
go and
Yeah.
see them. And I went to see them twice. Once in Manchester, I got tickets at the last minute, super cheap, and I went to see them at Wembley for 30 quid. And I absolutely adored it. And what I noticed, amongst everything else, generations of people that grew up with them, my daughters, I sang Oasis songs as lullabies, and all of that kind of familial stuff. I saw 50% of the audience ish men who struggle to express
Oh my God, you
feelings
know that
or
food.
to acknowledge. Claire, your microphone's on, or to acknowledge feelings, totally opening up
I'm just listening.
and able to and completely able to kind of like absorb this emotional storm. And it's needed.
Yeah.
It might be woo adjacent, right? It might
Yeah,
be on
yeah.
the edge of woo, but I think it's really important. And then last night I went to see Lewis Capaldi and cried about 20
Yeah,
times.
yeah, amazing.
Honestly, that man, his talent, his authenticity, his rawness. So I don't think if anything, I think we need more of that in the book. But I appreciate why you didn't want to major on it, because people aren't great at talking about feelings, and
No,
I
definitely
get
not.
that.
And not in that context either. But it is a sort of relation of energy as well, I think, which again, I only scratched upon it. I didn't go fully into that, but I think it is about energy. And music is also like what you just is a really interesting one. I actually built it in. Jessica will probably remember I was putting in loads about music and I went right down a massive rabbit hole. And the editor was like, oh my God. No, let's take some stuff out. And music actually disappeared, but I do think music in times of change. Like on my podcast, I ask people what's the music that kind of sits with you, and we always have a great chat
Hmm.
about music. So I think there's a point there that you're making about the collective energy and where do we get collective energy from? Sometimes it's music, sometimes it's sport, but that's an interesting one in moments of change because again, I think it kind of revitalizes you, it re-energizes you at moments when you need it. So yeah, interesting
T-
one.
Totally, it's one of the ways I shift my mood. It's like,
Yeah.
what do I need to
Yeah,
listen
yeah.
to now? I need
Yeah.
to listen to Sparks. This town ain't big enough for the both of us, or whatever it
Yeah.
might. I'm old, right? I'm 57. I'm allowed to like Sparks. Uh,
Yeah.
but it's interesting because it kind of connects to my next point, really, because the quote that you use in the book, which I love, is from an amazing singer called Nina Cherry, and this is in the section on purpose, and it's really easy to kind of mock purpose. It's really easy to go, oh, what's purpose? Got to earn money. Yeah, absolutely, got to earn money, or you're not living. But Nina's quote is, "You come to these thresholds in your life where you need to remember why you do what you do to reconnect with yourself." And it reminded me of a brilliant talk that I saw at Do USA by an amazing author, a woman called Elle Luna. And she talks
Mm.
about arriving at the crossroads of should and must. And that's the moment of clarity where she knows she can't just think and stay there. She has to do something. So
Yeah.
how do we, how do you help people understand purpose in a way that doesn't make them feel like there isn't an it?
Yeah, good one. I like that you quoted Nana as well. I actually, funny story. One, I'm quite obsessed with Nina Cherry, but she was kind of like my first obsession with music when I was at school in the sort of 90s, I think. And I really wanted to be Nina Cherry, and I wore really tight skirts and great big massive trainers because that's what Nina Cherry. And I actually had really frizzy kind of like curly hair, so very weirdly, I very much resonated with Nina Cherry when I was in my teens. And I absolutely Buffalo stance and all that. All loved it, loved it. Um, so when she had her book out, her memoir out last year, and I was just like, oh my God, this is just amazing. Like what she kind of went through and everything. So love that you've actually picked that out. But yeah, so purpose, I think definitely El Luna's stuff. Again, watch that stuff. I think it's interesting the must and shoulds that we kind of place in our narratives. But I think sometimes purpose can be getting a little bit big. Like, oh, if I can't change the world with what I do next, what's the point? And so I've tried to write it that it could be just understanding what matters to you today and getting up and just honoring that. It could be just as simple as that. Like today, I just want to show up, and my purpose is to get through the day without getting cross, despair, or frustrated with the world. And that's fine. So I've kind of written purpose like a little bit more achievable than sort of like the greater good piece. But obviously, if people do find that, and people do find it in moments of change, that they actually want to do some good in the world, obviously you could join like Andrea's social starters program for a start. You know,
Yeah.
there's stuff out there that you can help to do it really well, but it doesn't have to be that at the beginning because you might be in a moment of change where there's a lot going on, but you just get up and think, what's the most important thing that matters to me today? So that's what it's all about.
Totally. I get that completely. And I love the way you talk about that because it does help people who could be a little bit nervous with some of that. Well, I remember when I wrote Do Disrupt and I sent a copy to my dad. I thought everyone was writing fill it in books. I didn't realize they were all writing proper books. So I did a fill it in book, sent
Yeah.
it to my dad, and he said, "Yeah, I've done a lot of this self-help woo-woo." And I'm like, "Thanks, Dad." Fucker. But hey ho, that's life. And just to kind of move, I'm going to open up for some questions. In fact,
Yeah, let's.
if you've got any
Yeah,
questions, drop them in the comments, and I'll come to them in a minute. Um, I love your reframing of change as creative energy, and I love physics, I love maths, and I love equations, and I'm a scientist who's an artist because they were the same thing at one point. It's us that have separated them. But I love this whole idea of moving from potential and into kinetic energy.
yeah,
And it was really resonant when I was thinking about when we sat in a job that maybe wasn't good for us. We're sat in a relationship that maybe wasn't good enough, and we're building up potential energy, even static energy. There's a point where you've got to turn it into kinetic energy, and I love this whole idea as of this moment of creative energy. If if change is creative fuel,
mm,
I'm interested in you, and maybe everyone knows your story, but can you share a moment where you saw that play out in your own life, where you saw that repression turn into action? And I'll add a one in a minute, and people should add them in the chat if they've got them.
yeah. Definitely add stuff, and we'll bring a few people in to chat and stuff. Well, probably where it all started was, yeah, being made redundant. I mean, it's a well-trodden story now. Like lots of people get made redundant, and then they got a story to tell afterwards. So I think mine was like 8 years ago, at a really weird moment in time where a lot of kind of three things happened that massively changed everything. And suddenly you're kind of like, wow, 3 months ago I was thinking this was going on, and now suddenly I'm sat here with no job and no this and no that, and whoa, what the heck? So it was a really weird moment. And yeah, I decided to just write. That's where another door started. It was a blog, a really bad blog, really bad. Didn't know what I was doing. It was on WordPress. It was horrendous. At one point, I pressed the wrong button, and it started advertising really inappropriate kind of adverts out onto the blog. So when people were reading it, they were getting really inappropriate advertising. It was complete chaos. But I sort of built up a little, just people who just messaged me and said, "Oh, I just read, you've lost your job. I'm the same, blah blah blah." And that's just how it started. So that's probably that energy that you're describing. It wasn't sort of like positive energy. It was just these moments where you just think, oh God, this is crap. And going for interviews, you don't want to go for the job. Like you're just sitting there thinking, I don't want this job. I don't care about this job. And they're asking you like, oh, what about this? You think, I don't care. I literally couldn't care less is the actual answer. I'm not obviously going to say that. So it's those little moments. And then you say, well, I can't just sit there and do nothing. I've got to respond to this. And it's probably that was the energy sort of shift that you're describing. So yeah, that's where the book sort of ends. It ends on that part of like, right, okay, permission to go and do something with what you've created, like that energy you've created. So it doesn't give you the answers particularly of what you're going to do or how to do it, but it's created the energy to go, right, permission to go
Yeah.
and do it.
It's
So
the
yeah.
permission.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I had a dreadful day about 7 or 8 years ago where two business partners or business associates dropped me from their project or business on the same day. It was a really tough Thursday. Now, one of them was amazing and spoke to me and explained, and it was really straight. The other one still hasn't explained anything to me at all and doesn't even answer the telephone, right? But the removal of both of those things gave me, I like to call it oven spring, when you put a sourdough loaf in a hot on a hot tray and it pops straight
Yeah.
back up. It gave me this permission to go away and do the thing that I actually always wanted to do, but had been hiding
Yeah.
because I was doing something else that kind of felt similar. So I
Yeah.
completely get that shift in energy. Now I've got loads more questions, but a question from Andrea, and I'm going to go to that first. Speaking of system level change, if there is something you could do for the world or hope for it, what would that be? And then that she then references a quote near the end, which I really love. Um, Always leave space for
Mm.
magic. Look, magic happens when you believe in magic. That's that. If you don't believe in magic, guess what? It ain't ever going to happen. It's as simple as that. So how do we um make system level changes that would be good for the world?
Mm. Oh, good big question. Andrea, I kind of think that that is your space as well. I mean, yeah, go and do Andrea's amazing social starters. But I think for the change work, I actually think that what I'm trying to get at, and the book doesn't quite explain that well, but it's about we all need to work on our change mastery. That's essential. We don't need to wait until a door closes. So I know that the book's called Another Door Opens, and when a door closes, and you probably pick the book up at that moment, but it's about sort of change mastery and if we can get a bit better at change and the messiness of it and the fact that not everything is beautiful and we can have differences because the book is about understanding differences. It's about benefit mindset because growth, we've got fixed mindset and growth mindset, which we kind of talk about loads, but there's benefit mindset. And in moments of change, benefit mindset can be huge leaps forward in that mess. If you can open up to think, well, how could this be better for everyone? Imagine if we all have the skills to do that. And imagine would you get everybody in Trafalgar Square with a flag? Because like they understand like this change. That's what people are struggling with. You know, we struggle with change on so many different levels, and we don't allow ourselves to be messy, that we look for absolutes. And if someone says an absolute that we could go, oh yeah, that's what I'm about, staying where we are, of course we're going to follow it. So actually, I think it's on that level that if we can get a little bit better at change and understanding it as a sort of a skill set, because we call it resilience and adaptability and stuff like that in a corporate environment, but or we call change management a process on a spreadsheet. But actually, change mastery, like how are we good at change, could change your day every day. It could change and help you.
I love that. And I love what you just said about the political situation, the social political situation at the moment. People are uncomfortable with change, and they're actually uncomfortable with the idea of them needing to change, the world changing, or some people's changes being positive and they're not, and this falling behind. It's a really interesting conversation. We've got a question from Scott, and there's two questions, and one's for me, which I absolutely love it, and I can answer it really quickly. But we'll go to your question first because it's your night, and not mine. How does someone who doesn't sit easy in the rest get into the rest space? Are conscious that if you don't rest, you can't play or get messy.
Oh, I would love to just default here to Graham Olcott, who's the productivity ninja who kind of got me into thinking about that. I think it's like our relationship with rest. Like, so definitely that book, Resistance, Rest is Resistance, will change your whole mind about rest. It'll just completely, it's a really radical book that you just think, whoa, I never even thought about it like that. So the minute you think that rest has been pre-programmed to us to be a bad thing and we've been told it so that we'll be more productive and we just keep working harder and harder and harder, the little rebellion in us all, because we've all got a little bit of rebellion, will start going, whoa, hang on a minute. I'm not doing that. And so actually sort of invite yourself to believe that rest is actually, we've been pre-programmed to believe it's bad. And that's only for the good of the factory because the factory needs us to be, working 12 hours a day. So maybe have a little play with that. Scott, I know that you do rest quite well because you do loads of biking and stuff like that. And I think that's your form of rest. Your brain maybe doesn't rest because you're thinking of all your ideas, but maybe you do that. You're probably quite good at it. Um,
Active rest.
yeah, active rest. Definitely there's active rest. Definitely. And distraction is another thing that we're allowed to do. Sometimes I have to step away from my laptop and go and watch a terrible box set. I have to. My brain is like going, oh, this and this and that. And I'm like, oh my God, I've got to just go and watch some terrible sort of, I don't know what I was watching the other day. Like, what was I watching? I got really stuck into, I watched about 3 episodes back to back. Like a thriller on Netflix because I just had to stop my brain going off on one, like having a new idea about something. I think it was a new book actually, which Jessica, I'll be telling you all about. Um, yeah, I would like actually if Jessica's around, it might be good to actually bring her up as well. But let's see if Jessica responds. But yeah, what was the question about stone roses? Oh, brilliant! Just found
If
it.
a stone rosy track was a metaphor for change,
Yeah, yeah.
which would it be and
Oh, I
why?
love
And
that. Yeah.
the problem is I got three answers, right? So I'll go with the obvious one, which is She Bangs the Drums. And the song isn't really about change, but there's a line in it and it says, the past was yours, but the future's mine. You're all out of time. And I remember in 1988, 89, dancing to that in the little club the night I ran in. It was in a brothel, actually, in a cellar in a house in Bradford. I didn't know it was a brothel when I set the club up. And I remember thinking, yeah, past was yours and the future's mine. now I'm a 57-year-old granddad. It's not such a sweet lyric, right? Because the past was mine and the future's somebody else's. So there's that one. And then the last track on the first album, I Am the Resurrection, is a beautiful track, full stop. But it's just this down, down, you bring me
Yeah.
down. And yet then the song is ascending. And it feels like change. And then I guess the third one, sorry, I'm hogging this. The third one's Fool's Gold because it showed the shift from jangly
Mm.
indie into Chicago house fueled MDMA driven hedonism, which was a great transition. That
Yeah.
was a really great time. It's
Yeah.
taken far too long to
Oh no,
answer
I like
though.
that. I think Scott is a fan. I think you're a fan as well, Scott. Probably got a track as well. Yeah, I just wonder, is Jessica there? I don't know if she's here. Is she here? Can I pin
Don't
her?
know.
Yeah, she's here.
I
Well,
mean,
I don't want to speak.
I was gearing up for a fight because if you didn't say I'm the resurrection, then we were going to have words.
It's my answer to every question that starts which Stone Roses track.
It's the answer.
Because
Also, it's 8 minutes long, so you've got time to actually change like an
that's so
entire
true.
outfit if you need.
By the time you get to the end, you're a completely different person.
Jess, I've got 4 kids, 3 daughters, and my wife. And when we were all traveling in the car together, we'd all get one track each. But of course, I've got like 4 Taylor Swift tracks, and then my track, and then my son's track. So I just had this playlist of ridiculously long tracks. And I Am the
That's what you
Resurrection
want.
and The Fool's Gold are on there. I love that answer.
It was on my wedding playlist, and I told the DJ if you play the radio version, you're not getting paid. I need the full version.
I love that.
Oh, dear.
I love that.
Right, why did you want to pick on me? What do you want?
I wanted to I thought this was a nice opportunity to say thank you because behind every
Yeah.
book, there's some other people who've kind of made it happen. And Jessica makes my books happen.
Sorry, I've got a very noisy sausage dog in here. I mean,
And her sausage dog, not just
I
Jessica.
don't. I mean, I don't have to do a lot to make them happen because,
Wow.
you know, I mean, the one thing is that, like, I was not. I don't know how to say this without saying you overwrite. You don't overwrite, but you deliver long
I do
manuscripts. You do get a lot of stuff cut. And I want all of the stuff from both the first 2 books that got cut to be published, like even if it's just for us.
Yeah, but this time we got the Niffler in, so
There are some brilliant. I mean, the story of you and in the having to take what's his face,
Marshall Jefferson.
Marshall Jefferson to Butlins.
They took it out.
I know, in the mini, and Hannah in the back watching Ben and Holly, and him thinking that you were the sort of person that was going to go. It's all gold. But, you know, as you all know, because you all know her so well, and you all know her writing. I mean, her writing is just an absolute dream. And what I love about it, because I'm a coach as well as all of this. And I was thinking, because I think I struggle with the play part, and I think my version of that is the sort of like, well, let's just like it as a thought experiment. And so that kind of is that freedom of just like, there's my polite way of saying, I think you're an idiot, so could you consider a different point of view? But with what I love about, I've said this to you, what I love about your work is it's so skillful in guiding people through something in a way that, like, if, you know, loads of people are super resistant to coaching, right? But they just think it's all snake oil and nonsense. And you're so good at walking people through things without them even realizing that they're getting the help that they need. And you've just always been absolutely brilliant at that. But you just do it, and like, you know, your writing is so dry and funny, and you know, it's not in this kind of corporate like, here is a book on change, whatever. And it's, you know, that there's a sort of kind of like slightly twee publishing genre where people refer to stealth help rather than self-help. And that actually is, I think, what you do, because you take people to places where they probably wouldn't have said that they were comfortable going, but you just do it in such an accomplished way, with such kind of humor and intelligence, that, you know, it's like that when we started to get all the endorsements in from people, I was like, I've never fucking worked on a book that's had this kind of like blanket. People absolutely love it. And you once took someone to the pub to make them redundant, and they thought you were asking them out on a date. I mean, like, what else do we need from our authors?
That's
Yeah.
brilliant.
Yeah, awkward.
That's my favorite Eleanor story.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, I just wanted to take the opportunity to say thank you as my trusty aide. Like you take chances. And I think that's when we're all trying to do new things. We always have people like Mark, you know, you have people who take a chance on you and you have to have that. And I think it gets underestimated sometimes that every single book I read or every story of a successful person I read, somebody's given them a chance with
Yeah.
like a blank chance, not like, oh, you're already established. You know, everybody has that person. And I kind of feel like you, Jessica, you know, we started off in a cupboard because, you know, I
Well,
was
we
writing
weren't
in a
both in the
cupboard.
same cupboard, just to be
We were
clear.
in the same cupboard. I was in the cupboard with Jessica trying to help me to write my first book. And yeah, and you took a chance on me. So I just wanted to take the opportunity to say thank
Thank
you because
you.
we've all got, you know, we've all got people.
I've never seen it as taking a chance though, because I've never doubted that it wouldn't ever be. I just for me, there's that gut gut thing of like, oh, there just needs to be more of you out in the world. That's just a given, and that was
Mm.
what I found from when I first started reading your writing. So, it's I like it when I get proved to be true, and I'm right. So there we go.
Yeah, cool. Oh, yeah, great, right, exactly. Derek Sivers, TED Talk, first follower. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, matters.
Well,
So,
yeah,
I just want to say
that's a
thanks. Do
good
you want me
talk,
to
right?
unpin you now, Jessica? Do you feel uncomfortable? Remove pin. That was me
But
saying
it's
thank you.
I love that little segue because it leads me into my next question. I am also mindful of the time, but it leads
Yeah.
me into my next question, which is about being ready, willing, and able. And you need all three things. And I actually think they're multipliers rather than additions. But this
Yeah.
whole idea of being ready for change, we have been willing to step forward, and then having the ability, and in this case, the support to make that change. And that's what Jessica
Yeah,
and many,
true.
but I mean, that's what Dan has done for so
Yeah.
many authors under the Unbound
Yeah.
project, a business that he ran. How do we know it's the right time? I often talk about Chronos and Kairos time, the Greek well, there's actually three, but the two definitions of time, and the time that's right for you. There's a hesitancy that it's now, and so we realize it was now when we look back and go, "Oh shit, I was early. I should have done that." How do we know when we're ready, willing, and able?
Oh, yeah, good shout. I think the moments that you start just stepping into curiosity, it's got, you know, you can't really get out of that. Once you're kind of in that space and you understand it, you're always going to be an open mind then. And I think when you look back at corporate life, I think many of us have had corporate life here, and you look back and you think, God, I was so uncurious. I just did stuff and got through it. And, you know, sometimes you have a great idea, but most of the time it was pretty processed. You weren't this open, curious mind, this le learning mind that kind of, you know, goes, oh, what about this? What about that? And once you realize that, once you discover it, it's kind of with you. And I think that's it. So try and kind of get that energy somehow. And that's what the steps kind of try to ease you in gently too. Once you start getting curious about yourself in moments of time, who am I now? What is the new me? Let's get messy with that. Where else are you going to go? You can't go back because you've suddenly started to get kind of interested in new you. So I think that's where you get to with willing and able part. I wanted to put that in because I do think there's a part of you got to be realistic with some stuff about capacity and capability, have good relationships with capacity and capability, especially capacity. I see a lot of people who want to do stuff and they do it, but they just never had the capacity. They shouldn't have done it. They should have had a better sort of relationship with, have I got capacity to do this right now? Just because I want to, is it right? And they feel like they've failed, but it was actually just a capacity problem, you know, just the wrong moment in time. So I think all of those moments kind of help us through to that point of momentum and keep going, and how to know when to quit is also kind of like an important part. So yeah, that's what I would say about that.
It's a great answer, it really is. And just to finish off, unless we get some more questions coming in, I was I love the analogy and the lines that you draw between personal and organization change, the parallel between the two. And I'm really interested in what's the most powerful lesson business could borrow from personal transitions. But before I do that, I was also struck by your reference to Raymond Loewy, I think it's pronounced right, Raymond Loewy, and the Maya philosophy, which is, in terms of developing something at the most advanced yet
Yeah.
acceptable. And I'm a massive fan that we talk about minimum viable product. I'm a massive fan of the minimum lovable product idea,
Yeah.
which is my idea. I'm having that, and
Yeah.
that whole idea that they kind of mirror each other, but one is for the individual and one is for the business. So those lessons that you flip between business and individuals, what's the most powerful lesson business could borrow from personal transition?
Yeah, you're right. I love the Maya stuff. Like he's an industrial designer, so he
Mm.
experiments to try and change design. Like I think he was in the 60s, 70s, so really iconic stuff in America. I think the Greyhound bus is probably, I think, one of his, and so really iconic things. But he got there by this feeling of he talks about the familiar, which I think is transferable and for us in personal and in corporate to kind of play with. He talks about actually what he realized in his studies, and he did it with kind of a lot of people, it wasn't just him, but this familiar, people can only change if they feel something is familiar enough, this kind of most acceptable, that's the first part of Maya, and yet it feels like the change is needed. So he talked about this familiar surprise where it's comfortable enough that you don't feel completely terrified of like what on earth is this? I feel completely out of comfort zone. And but the change comes to you in the space. So playing with that idea, if you think about organizational change, is quite interesting because sometimes something feels so out of touch and overwhelming and far away. It terrifies people because people are terrified for their jobs. It kind of sinks into the sort of psychological safety that we need. It kind of doesn't even honor that. So if we can introduce change through a sort of lens of familiar, what is the familiar stuff that gives us comfort, and then what is the surprise, and what's the sort of the end Maya bit, the acceptable bit that can shift us to the next part. That's a really interesting part which never gets talked about in change management processes.
I love that. When I'm developing new products with companies, we talk about, say we're doing drinks or food, something sort of flavorful. We talk about putting a known flavor in there, something that everyone's really
Yeah,
comfortable with. Talking about putting a flavor in there that feels like at the front of innovation to them. And then putting something in there like a black cardamom or something that is
yeah,
that is so far from normality, but it's okay because you've got the known holding
that's
its
it. Yeah,
hand. It's holding the hand of vanilla. And I think there's a lot of lessons from industrial design, whether it be Raymond or whether it be Dieter Rams, that apply, I think, to how you design your change.
yeah,
And what your ability, Eleanor, is to take those lessons because you're clearly a curious person wandering around like a mind like a scrapbook, and you take all of this and you make it relevant for people who don't have a mind like that. And that is an absolute gift. If you read The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, when people travel around the galaxy, they need to understand all the different languages, and they pop a little fish in their ear called a Babel fish. And you are very much a Babel fish for business inspiration into personal, and then personal inspiration back into business. So I cannot thank you enough for what you do. And this is your first book was good, but this is an absolute belter. So I really, really appreciate it. And thank you, Jessica, for editing and making sure that it happened. 'Cause I don't believe Eleanor would ever be late with anything. So I'm pretty certain it was an easy job to do.
I'm never late for deadlines, no way.
Thank,
Thank you very
thank you
much. That
so
was
much.
highly uncomfortable. But yeah, and thank you for joining. What a lovely gang of people. I feel like this is a really cool party. I feel like I wish that this was sort of like in a bar because there's some really cool people here. So thank you so much for
We can
jumping
we, we can have a lockdown disco. This room, this studio,
on.
hosted many throwing of shapes in those early days of lockdown discos. We
I
should
know that
we should
most
do that.
people on this call have got their like Leslie is massive music person. Like when we've both got the same posters, which is ridiculous, Leslie, on every level. We've got Anthony Burrell posters. So like yeah, exactly. So Leslie could kind of choose the discs. Gav can choose Gav's kind of music as well. We always chat about Andrew as well. Yeah, Scott actually. I don't know if we've talked about music, but he's always going on about music in his writing. Sherry, I'm sure that you have, because you know Scott, you're going to be all. So yeah, I feel like this is a good party. Maybe we need to do that.
Scott's chatted music in the chat, right? Scott's already identified, when I really like this insight because it reminds me of Kairos time, that the Sparks are in their 80s and they're still achingly cool. And yes, they are, but I didn't realize they were in their 80s. My dad's age. That's kind of like made me go, fuck, that's like the Rolling Stones, isn't it? They're in their 80s as well now.
Wow, I didn't know that either. I saw them at Glastonbury with what was the actress, and she came and did Crying in the Latte. That was amazing.
No idea.
Self-esteem, amazing. Wow. Anyway, oh, good point, Andrea. Do I need to do a picture? Oh, you see, you're good at this stuff, Andrea. How do I do it? I don't know how I do it.
I can do it.
You do it.
Yeah, do you want me to do it?
Depends on your laptop, doesn't it?
Yeah, thanks.
Aye.
Andrea was really good at this on her book launch. She got everyone to do this, and I was like, oh yeah, notes, and then totally forgot.
Right, so we'll do it. I'll give you a count in, right? We'll do it. Sue's got her camera off, so
That's
I'll
cool.
ignore that.
Sue,
And I'll
yeah.
put my book up as well. Okay, everybody.
Well, Sue hasn't even got a book. How rude.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There you go. I love it. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. And please share the good news of Eleanor's book. And yes,
Oh no,
Sparks are on the new
yeah.
Gorillas today.
Thank you so much for joining. I'm really, really chuffed that you all joined. So yeah, thank you. You made my day. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's
She's
so
back that
nice
way,
seeing
Sean.
all of you.
Yeah, thanks, Sherry, for joining in.
Thanks,
That's
Sherry.
awesome.
Yeah. Have a great, well, it's only 1 o'clock for me, so you have a good night.
Oh yeah, cool. Yeah, have a good lunch.
Yeah, thank
Awesome.
you. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.